let's get into the faith of it all.
Mm.
So, Faith is suing Bravo. This is not her first rodeo with trying this. Back in, I would say, 2 years ago, around the time that Scandoval was really popping off, Faith had made a first effort to, I believe she was planning on suing Stassi. And
Mhm.
that sort of fell through, and then I would say more recently, she tweeted something about, "I just got off the phone with my, like, new, in parentheses, lawyer, and oh boy, things are gonna get crazy," or something. So, guess who her lawyer is? Mark
Bethenny said
Garagos. So she's got the backing of Bethenny.
Wow, Bethany's coming for Bravo.
She's on their nuts, dude, and it's crazy. Like, first of all, wow, like, I can't believe like, if I even met Mark Aragos, I feel like I would be starstruck. Sean Hawley, who represented Lindsay Lohan and Nicole Richie in their DUIs, like, I
Mm,
love a lawyer that feels famous to me. Like, if I met Johnny
mhm.
Cochran, God rest his soul, I probably would have passed out. Like, I love a famous lawyer.
What about Bob Shapiro? Would you feel the same way?
100%. Even if I saw the Robert Kardashian hologram, I'd lose my mind.
I mean, I would definitely lose my mind if I saw that.
Um, for a variety of reasons, right?
Many reasons.
But yeah, so basically, Faith is with this new lawyer and she's suing NBC Universal, which is also very Bethany coded. Whole she's bypassing the whole, like, I'm gonna sue individuals. She's going after the network.
Wowza.
Because there was some stuff, and I'm so sorry, you guys, because I've been looking fucking everywhere, but for some reason, these Bravo accounts that have the lawsuit are not sharing it, and I even reached out to Meredith Lynch, who's like a fucking beagle, and she can find anything, like, she's literally like a truffle pig. Like, she just is, like, out here, like, she can find anything. And so I reached out to Meredith and I was like, "Girl, like, do you have it?" And she was like, "I just saw someone who had it," but she's like, "I it's really hard to find for some reason."
Huh.
So, I don't know if there's maybe some suppression on terms because, like, that can happen. Like, normally, if you just Google, like, Faith Stowers v. NBC Universal, like, within the first few results, you'll find the actual court filing. I wouldn't be surprised if there was some sort of suppression that was
Mm.
applied on NBC Universal's part because this is bad to the bone. So she's suing for a variety of things, but one of the things at the center of all of this, and this is what's getting the most attention, and I think it's because we are in an anti-Lala economy,
Mhm.
is
Rough
that
time for the Lalanators.
dude, it's a terrible day to be a Lalanator. So I yeah, so she is suing for retaliation, discrimination, hostile work environment, retaliation under a different part of the labor code than the first part, failure to prevent discrimination and harassment, wrongful termination in a violation of public policy, intentional infliction of emotional distress, and negligent infliction of emotional distress. And what this all comes down to is well, there's a lot of stuff. I'll read through this. This is from the Bravo investigator, and they sort of recapped what was in the lawsuit. It says Faith Stowers alleged that she was victimized by Evolution, which is a production company for Vanderpump, NBC, and the cast during her time on Vanderpump Rules and for many years thereafter. Lala Kent would routinely joke that she was blacker than Faith, and this was caught on camera.
Sounds
Brittany Car
extremely Lala, by the way. That
Oh, well, I
sounds
mean, like, what did Kalala would say she's Tupac reincarnated.
yeah, yeah.
Do you remember that famous it's, like, iconic when Lala went to a step and repeat wearing, like, probably a bathing suit that was Tupac's body and tattoos with, like, a pair of jeans.
Oh my god.
It's just like she's a fucking nut bar, and, like, I
Yeah.
know that that's I know that there's so much wrong with this, but it's also just like it's like the Ramona factor, where you're
Mhm.
like, "Yeah, I'm listening to a nutcase." Like, that's like, I know that this is bad. She's fucking nuts. You know what I mean?
Uh-huh.
So, Brittany Cartwright hurled racial slurs at Faith over speakerphone in the presence of cast members and cameras mocking her, quote, "nappy hair." Um,
Ugh.
there's also Faith had said something about being attacked with a knife was pulled on her. We'll talk more about that in a second, but Faith basically this happened on camera, and Faith confided in a producer that she had developed feelings for Lala Kent. I believe romantic feelings.
Mhm.
Production seemed gleeful to make a dynamic as awkward and uncomfortable as possible. For the cast trip to Hawaii, production arranged for Kent and Stowers to stay in a room with a single bed. Moreover, production pressured Kent and Stowers to, quote, get intimate and touch each other sensually on camera. Faith alleges that she was violently assaulted by Lala Kent, who violently approached her with a knife on camera. Furthermore, as a black woman who served in the military, Faith felt that if she attempted to disarm Lala Kent, which
It's a hell of a sentence.
just like it's just like disarm her is like crazy. But like it's true. But like it just thinking of like Lala needing military trained tactics used against her is like crazy. Like, I am glad my taxes went toward that. You know what I mean? Like,
Mhm.
that's great. So she attempted to disarm Lala. She would be stereotyped due to her race and blamed for the events. She was discouraged by the show not to escalate the situation or involve the police and that her job would depend on it. So then it goes on to, we go on to get some more. Let me go on to this Bravo investigator.
Is this the her job would depend on it, the job that Bravo was not paying her for?
Correct. So
Great. Love that.
she'd been Peter zoned,
Oh,
essentially,
no.
which is like when you are not asked to be on. They said that they didn't have budget for Peter, which is like, just tell the truth, which is that Peter doesn't bring it because like you would have had the money for Raquel to come back.
Mhm.
I wonder if that's like what they meant by they didn't have money is maybe they felt like they were in a holding pattern with Raquel and that they knew that they would have to bring a lot of money
Right.
to the table.
Yeah.
So continues on. Faith Stowers faces retaliation from NBC and Evolution, who forced her to sign a new revised contract where she would be considered an unpaid volunteer. When NBC heard that Faith wanted to speak out, they reprimanded her and threatened her with legal action. A hot mic and Faith. This is where I'm going to say, good luck selling this part because we know where Faith was when she and Jax had sex. And unless she had a home studio in this elderly woman's palliative care, like, I am calling a slight BS on the unless this old elderly woman was I mean, I'm assuming Faith must have been a live-in caretaker, but the idea that this was caught on a hot mic in Faith's home studio feels I don't know about that.
Mm.
In a hot mic in Faith's home studio, inadvertently recorded a conversation between her and Jax Taylor. The reason why we've never heard that phone call is because it is illegal to record someone without their consent in the state of California. In the recording, Stowers and Taylor discuss their relationship, and Taylor informs Stowers of his intention to leave Cartwright. Another cast member, James Kennedy, illicitly accessed Stowers' phone and found the recording, which he sent himself. Stowers had no idea Kennedy had access to the recording until she heard chatter about its contents. Faith was then pressured to return to the show and then was given a new form to sign and was instructed to confront Jax Taylor about her affair with him. The form was a contract saying she would again not be paid. Faith feels that white cast members would not be subjected to this treatment. Faith alleges that NBC and Evolution threatened to savage her reputation and destroy her career. And the next one is Faith believes that the Vanderpump Rules cast coordinated to ruin her life through social media, podcasts, and elsewhere. Faith says that she was falsely accused of going AWOL. AWOL is
Absent without
absent
leave?
without leave. Yeah, so that means basically you ditched out on the military. Cast members accuse Faith of being a criminal. Faith alleges that this was a campaign of racial harassment. NBC and Evolution tightly controlled any disclosures made about other cast members and could have shut this down at any time. They chose not to do so, ratifying these virulently racist words and deeds. Tweet from Jax is included in this post saying she's wanted by the police for grand theft auto and AWOL from the military. Bad idea to be on a reality show, dude. Someone's going to jail. Then some tweets from Kristen that says, "Hey, Tweeties, doesn't this Pump Rules thief look familiar? Someone put her on MTV and gave her a platform for press. I didn't want to go there, but I'm going there." And by that, she means Faith was on the challenge on MTV.
Mhm.
NBC and Evolution cynically pretended to not to care about Faith's mistreatment by firing cast members in 2020 for racist words and actions of cast members that they had known about for years, but never contacted Faith herself. Bravo then rehired those fired cast members for a spin-off show called The Valley, which Faith believes to be cynical. And then it's decided, this is, what does she want? Money. The money isn't fully specified, but that includes legal fees and damage accounts determined at the trial. Faith Stowers is demanding a trial by jury. Why doesn't Faith sue the actual parties like Stassi, Kristen, and Lala? And they write, I can't know for certain, but I would speculate she would get a lot more money suing Bravo, NBC, and Universal, especially if there's video evidence of these things she's alleging. So that's what's going on there.
Mm.
And this knife incident, which Lala says she has no recollection of, and she is devastated by this information coming out. I think it's important possibly to note that she may not remember it because of her when she claims to not remember almost anything when she was
When she's
not
drinking?
sober.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then but I mean, what a convenient thing to forget, right?
Mhm, mhm.
So and also, I mean, it doesn't help that like Stassi and Kristen and Jax were all let go sort of as like a call to action from the public to NBC Universal, and that this all happened in early June of 2020. And I think they caved. I just don't think that this show cares that much about injustice. Like, I mean,
No.
there's some credible evidence that James Kennedy was physically abusive with at least Kristen. And Kristen has come out and said that that's the case. And she's been very delicate about how she's said this because, frankly, like, we know that these things can end in really damaging lawsuits. You know, we saw
Mhm.
that with Johnny Depp, right? So I think she's also being careful about that for legal reasons. And also, she knows, like, if, let's say, Lisa and James attempted to sue her, that would bury Kristen. And I think she also knew that the Valley was coming. And if she had admitted to, if she had blatantly said that this happened and that people knew and there was a cover up for it, I think that would jeopardize her opportunity on the Valley.
Mhm.
So there does exist some unfortunately very lighthearted recapping of Lala pulling a knife on Faith. And if we'll remember, like, it was the mistake of giving Stassi Schroder a fucking microphone that led to a lot of this stuff, right? A lot of this stuff coming to light because she was really having a moment and was sort of shameless in her babbling about what was going on behind the scenes, and in particular, her vendetta against Faith. And so
Mhm.
she, very early on in her podcasting career, sort of got in with a bunch of the other girlies that were doing podcasts, including this podcast, Bitch Bible, which is like a crazy, which is a crazy podcast name. It's good branding, but Bitch Bible's crazy, a crazy name. So we should play this clip of her admitting to Lala, volunteering rather, not admitting, volunteering that Lala pulled a knife on Faith, which just goes to show how unserious Stassi thought all of this was at the time.
You know who I wonder about a lot? Faith. She hashtags Pump Rules all the time, and I guess, and like people tell me this because I'm in like a group message with everybody.
Yeah.
And that like
I think about her.
she goes
every
on
day.
red carpets and all that stuff, and I'm like, okay, Jubilee, like, really? Like, who are you?
I want to know. Like, I
don't
really
know
want
if
her to
I've
do
even-
the podcast because I need to ask her where she got her gray highlights and why. Like, what is she doing? What is that?
And wasn't she in the military too? Did she say that?
I think she was.
I definitely think that you just made that up. There's no fucking way she was.
I feel like no, I think she was because Lala pulled a knife out on her on camera this season, except they didn't air that.
Oh. Actually, my favorite thing about that clip is the person who's screen recording it gets a text from their mum halfway through.
I didn't see that.
The text comes up on the top of the screen. It says "Mum" from mum. It says, "Are you okay?" It's like, well, no, probably not, because I'm going back through old episodes of the Bitch Bible to find the tea.
Yeah,
I'm mentally ill, mother.
This was from the Bravos account, so who knows what's going on over there. And this is listed under the hashtag accountability for Stassi. And I don't know who Jubilee is, but they
Me
did like a
neither.
frog emoji after. And when I search Jubilee, I just get a Marvel character.
Oh.
But I feel like it might be the name of a frog on, I mean, for some reason I want to say like Gullah Gullah Island or something.
Oh. Well, it's very mean.
Yeah,
It's a
no, it's definitely mean. I'm like wondering why she called, what does that mean though? Jubilee. Like, is that something we're supposed to understand?
I don't know. Maybe it's maybe there's something in the earlier part of the episode that we're not privy to.
Yeah, well, this will live with me. But yeah, what do you think?
I don't want to be an advocate for the devil because he doesn't need one, but I think I believe that all of this stuff happened to her. I think it was probably a very toxic environment. There's something that feels slightly opportunistic about this timing under the Bethenny banner of it all, but I don't deny that she would have had a fucking awful time because I think it's a very horrible environment, and she is the one and only woman of color to have ever been on Vanderpump Rules.
Well, if you don't count Lala.
Well,
I'm kidding, of course, you guys.
no,
But
you're right. You're right. Yeah, no, yeah.
But I listen, I think that what Faith underwent is a form of gang stalking. Like when a bunch of people gang up to basically bully, intimidate, harass a person with things that are, maybe there's a grain of truth, maybe it's baseless. That's very damaging to the soul.
Yeah, I feel like she was made a very convenient scapegoat in the Jax and Brittany of it all. Even though Jax did get a decent amount of flack, he did still have his whole big wedding, and people just kind of like, well, it's Jax. It's what he does. Yeah, it's Jax. He fucks around. And I think she really took the brunt of it. I take the clip of Jax coming up to her in a club, and he's like, Tom's been saying, he's like all coked up, like, Tom's been saying that you allegedly that you had sex with me, so you have to like tell him that you didn't. And Faith looks at him and she's like, are you fucking kidding me right now? Like, she looks like she slipped into an alternate reality. Like, what the fuck? Like, are you fucking joking with me?
Yeah.
And you see this like manic, like eyes wide, like Jack's energy where he's like telling her with his mind, like, lie for me, Faith. And it's like, she isn't that like, why would she fucking lie for you, bro? Like, you were the one who did the bad thing. I don't know. I agree with the gang stalking. I don't think it was kind for anybody to make her the face and the scapegoat, the scorpion woman, as it were, of the horrible play that involved Jax.
So one of the
Yeah.
other things though is like, so the whole like Faith steals thing sort of originates with, I mean, I don't think that Stassi and Kristen pulled it out of their ass that maybe some things had gone missing around Faith. That's what it sounded like. Is that like a friend of Kristen's had seen Faith out in a jacket that belonged to her.
Okay.
So that's where it sort of originated from, and it turned into this like insane lore. And Faith, I believe, was couch hopping at the time. And, the way that Stassi's just so, especially, where we are now and like knowing how homelessness affects so many people, was like Faith's homeless. Like, and it just like is like, well, yeah, like give it a few years and you're going to see half the country is living in some sort of homelessness. You know what I mean?
Mm.
Like, homeless doesn't always look the same, you know?
Mhm.
And I think she was couch hopping a lot. And there was a point where she was staying with Lala, and Lala apparently used to plant things. This is what Stassi says. Lala used to plant things around her apartment to see if Faith would steal them. Now, there's never any follow-up on that about whether or not Faith did steal them. But like, I mean, I don't know. I a dick. Like, I've quote unquote stolen sweatshirts from half the men I've slept with.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? Like, if it is stealing, but it's like, Jax's car, apparently the night that Jax and Faith slept together, his car was stolen. And that's why he accused her of grand theft auto. But it's also like, Jax, like, you're heavily coked out.
Mhm.
Like, at what point, Jax, like, at what point would Faith have stolen your car? And vehicle theft is also highly common in Los Angeles.
Mhm.
So it's like, I don't think Faith stole your car.
No.
Like, was
I
she in bed with you or not?
Right. I think I guess I want to like clarify my sort of devil's advocate opportunistic comment. Only like I don't deny that she would have had a terrible experience. I guess I'm just like I'm a little bit stuck on I don't have any real read on what Faith's character is because I don't think we spent a lot of time with her on screen and I couldn't get a read either way on kind of what sort of individual she was. The thing that has always been a little bit sticky to me is the recording of the conversation they had post sex and why somebody would feel the need to make that. And I never really bought the hot mic on the home studio thing and was like, is this
Well, how did
somebody?
it wind up on her phone?
Right. Is this somebody who's maneuvered, is sort of not getting a great deal of screen time and is sort of looking for an opportunity to get paid properly and be a sort of recurring proper cast member and having, hit the bit of a mother load with sleeping with Jax and like spinning that into an opportunity? Like, not saying that as a judgment, but just as a like, okay, interesting. Yeah. Why was it on her phone? But yeah, it's pretty disgusting. It's really interesting how a lot of the insults and sort of like nasty little tweets and stuff hurled towards Faith are very racially coded.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think it's like even that random. I think it's like it's storytelling. Like they're trying to tell a story about her.
They're trying to paint a picture.
And
Yeah.
that's the thing where it's like I feel bad for her because like it's really scary when you lose control over your own narrative. And I will say that for like, people are always like, Faith's always chirping, Faith's always saying this and that. Like, realistically, she's been incredibly restrained compared to like what we've seen other people do to get
Mm.
their word in. Like, and I don't know if it's because they did such a fucking damaging job to her credibility that people just weren't interested in hearing her or buying her story or whatever.
Mhm.
But I wouldn't be surprised if that's at least part of it.
Mm.
And I wouldn't be surprised if Lisa's relationships with the tabloids wasn't at least part of it, you know? Like,
Mm.
a lot of people were saying, like, it's crazy that Radar Online picked up this lawsuit because Radar Online and Lisa are in bed.
Mhm.
And so, you know, if you risk you're like, are you really gonna risk your relationship with Lisa Vanderpump to hear from this person who is very well painted as this sort of disgruntled castmate when, you know, what also happened with the first of all, I do wanna say, if someone pulls a butter knife on you, is that a knife? Like, what was she to do? Chop her sideways? Like,
Yeah.
do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Pulling a knife has like evokes a very specific image, and when you hear it's a butter knife, it sort of takes the jazz out of it. But when, you know, Bravo had called her and basically was like, or yeah, between Evolution and Bravo, someone had called her and basically said, like, we'll keep you on the show if you don't report this to the police.
Mm.
And if you do report this, let's just say that this is going to have ramifications for you, which is fucking crazy.
Yeah. I think the Vanderpump universe is a viper's nest. And I think people who were there at its sort of origination and its core already had an established relationship, and people who come into that universe, I think, have a very difficult time blending in, staying, and maintaining. And if it's not usually part of your character to be part of that like nest, you will be dragged into it and you will not win the games that are played because the people you're playing against have been playing them for much longer. And I think
How
that
I feel about
happened with
Joe.
Rachel. Well, quite. I think that like people who could usually probably hold their own would be torn to pieces in that environment. And on the Lala and the butter knife of it all, the one thing I always thought was interesting about Lala, apart from that one time when she shoved, I can't remember who she shoved, but apart from that one time she shoved someone, Lala is definitely like a barker, not a biter. And I think often would bank on the other party backing down, and so would do a kind of display of aggression to end the like, I don't know, end the beef quickly because she would kind of go crazy. It reminds me of and there's a in Jersey Shore when they're in Italy and Mike and Ronnie start fighting, and Mike, to diffuse, I guess, the situation and show Ronnie what a crazy motherfucker he is, like runs into a wall because he knows that if he got into an actual fight with Ron, he wouldn't win because Ron's much bigger and scarier and allegedly roided up, right? But Mike bangs his head into a wall, and because it's Italy and all the walls aren't made of plasterboard, he fucking throws his neck out and has to sit in a neck brace for several weeks.
Oh my God.
But he was like, oh yeah, usually I would do that, like, you know, back in America, and I'm like, my, like, you know, I would just, nothing would happen to me, but it's Italy and the walls are like 6 inches of concrete. So
Yeah.
it didn't do anything. And I think like when Lala pulls a knife, it's a butter knife because she is not intending to do any harm. She's trying to bark a little bit louder so the other person backs down. I saw that in the confrontation she had with Katie. She does a lot of like, don't go there with me. Don't try me on this. As if to like set out her stall, but never like kind of go all the way. It's like if she kind of frightens them off with her aggression, then it never really actually comes to proper blows.
I'm like that. I'm gonna be honest with you. I do see some of myself in that because it's like,
Mm-hmm.
I'm a fucking pussy. I'm not gonna
Mm-hmm.
do anything.
Mm-hmm.
But like, I'll be caustic, and that's not illegal.
Mm-hmm.
Like, God, you know, like back like in my 20s, like I could be caustic. Like I could really eviscerate someone with words because I didn't have healthy coping mechanisms. And I've learned to be quiet in my older years, but, like, I could have been very caustic, you know, in certain situations, and, like, but I with no intent to actually act on anything. It's a way to, like, shut people up and just be like, "Shut up,
Yes.
shut up, shut up, shut up, shut up."
Yeah, like shut them down. So like do a grand gesture of aggression and hope that the other person's like, fuck, this motherfucker's crazy. Like I'm not gonna fuck with them. Like this is done. I'm walking away. That said, it doesn't mean that like, just because it was a butter knife and it wasn't she wasn't, gonna like, rub her on a piece of bread afterwards, that it wasn't still an act of aggression, like
Yeah.
because the thing that you want the person to do is be frightened. And so like whether or not it's a machete or a butter knife, like you want the person to kind of be like, oh fuck, Jesus Christ, this person's
Well,
crazy.
the other thing I think is great here, and this is where I will say I'm thankful to Bethenny for this, is that, like, you know, I do think that what happened to Faith was very damaging to her, and, like,
Mm-hmm.
to kill someone's spirit is like, there's a lot of people, I'm like, "I'd rather you just break my leg
Mm-hmm.
than kill my spirit." You know what
Mm-hmm.
I mean? Like, I wish you did. I wish you like, like, instead of just breaking my spirit, I wish you'd just fucking hit me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, that's I've had that feeling before where I'm like, "We're doing this the long way." Like, just this is so degrading to my soul.
Mm. But that's what I mean
And
about the viper's nest of it all. Like they very readily chew people up, spit them out, and discard them, and then it's like moving on, and people are kind of left in the cold, in the dark, and often with their reputations like irreparably damaged.
I don't think Faith was getting good counsel, previously. It seemed a little all over the place. Like, why are you going for small beans with Stassi? Like, Stassi's got a little ka-ching, but, like, what are you gonna get? Like, 60K? And then because your lawyer took you on contingency, they take 30%? Like, what are you left with? You
Mm,
know? So, by the way, I don't think damages lawsuits should be taxed. Like, I really feel that way. I know that that's not the way the country works, but I do feel like having to pay 50% taxes on your damages is disturbing.
mm,
But this is organized. It's Mark Garagos. They took the time, they went through things. This was a lawyer that Faith could have never afforded on her own. Clearly, this has been on her spirit. And, if the things that are stated and that were filed with the court are true, this is bad. And so I'm pro that. I
mm-hmm.
also think that Bravo has not done its stars any favors.
No.
And that is what I say to like about the Lala of it all too, is it's like I was reading someone say on the Vanderpump Rules Reddit today that the show has like a history of sort of covering up Lala's aggression. And Lala is not the only cast member this is true of. And I feel like when you are covering for bad behavior, the person doesn't learn their lesson. They feel emboldened to continue. And that is a recipe for disaster.
Mm.
So yeah, that's just my thoughts, my feelings on that. But
I tell you what, Bravo's very, very lucky that they have not had, uh, with the exception of Taylor Armstrong's husband, but this was not related to the show, but has not had a high profile suicide. Because there were a few years ago where there were a couple of Love Island contestants who took their life, and then Caroline Flack, who presented Love Island, and this was after a great deal of online harassment and sort of the exposure of these people, sort of relatively normal people who had suddenly been catapulted to a degree of notoriety and fame and being relentlessly trolled, but also, lots and lots of stuff in the media about them. And I think, as far as I'm aware, there was like quite a big shift towards looking at duty of care when it comes to producing shows like this in the UK in particular. I went to a legal talk with Channel 4, and they talked about some of the more dicey incidents like the Jeremy Kyle show. I believe there was a suicide, and like there was a real spate of them, and people who were maybe quite emotionally vulnerable, dealing with harsh amounts of media scrutiny and like online harassment, was a recipe for fucking disaster. And the people that were putting them on screen did not fulfill their duty of care correctly. And in this instance, I think she is very, very smart to be going after the big dogs, because ultimately the responsibility in making the programming lies with them. And if the working environment is unsafe, then they might have to look at their practices again. But they know Bravo have got a shit ton of lawsuits coming out, but they are, I think, very, very lucky there hasn't been like a high profile suicide.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's suicide and reality TV go hand in hand, unfortunately. You
Yeah,
know,
of
that's
course.
the truth. And you know, I think one of the reasons why people I think one of the reasons why Bravo in particular has not dealt a little bit more with that is due to the shows centering around sort of upper class wealthy people, like in
Hmm.
demographics where suicide might be less likely to happen. And that's not to say that there isn't tremendous mental illness and other sort of things, but typically Bravo centers around people who have resources. And they also tend to cast people who are tough as nails.
Mm.
Whereas, like, maybe let's say The Bachelor or like some of the talent competitions or whatever else, like those are just people. Like those are
Mm.
just people that want to date or have a good singing voice or you know, it's a lot of it though are like, you know, the shows that are sort of cobbled together with just randoms. Those are I feel like where you see the most suicide, right?
Right.
Love
Well,
Island, stuff like that.
yeah, yeah. Although there's in the reunion for Real Housewives of Salt Lake City, Heather Gay does come for Andy Cohen quite hard at some point, where they're talking about the reality Von Teese exposure of it all. I don't know how familiar you are with that situation, but she talks about how when Monica, I think her name is, was cast, and she talks about when she had told the Bravo producers that like people hires, you know, the higher ups, that she was there to stir up shit, and they knew exactly who she was, and that she was running this troll account the whole time, and like they were aware. And Heather kind of draws she basically looks straight at Andy and says like, you know that harassment online is the most difficult part of doing this job. You know how like demoralizing it is for us women. And I feel like if you knew who Reality Von Teese was, and that she was coming in the show and she'd written all of these horrible things about us and our families and all the rest of that kind of stuff, like how do you ever expect to attract a higher caliber of woman? Like how do you ever expect to attract high quality housewives anymore? Like if you're not protecting us, like that's the thing that you're
Yep.
supposed to be doing.
Yep. That's a really good point. I mean, listen, for a very long time, I feel like in this industry, it was a big no to talk ill of Andy Cohen. And I just feel freed. I'm going to be honest.
Mhm.
I feel freed because, like, you know, like, it's just like there's too much there. And, like, I feel like we're in a safe place to be like, he's a nightmare person.
Well, the blinds are saying that he's costing them too much money, and they're basically gonna start phasing him out. That
I agree
he's
with
not the
that.
golden boy of Bravo anymore, and that their relationship is starting to sour, and he's just, yeah, he's too
He doesn't
much
even
for what
really
they're
work
getting.
for Bravo anymore. Like,
No.
he has Watch What Happens Live. Like, hasn't worked with them for quite some time, like, in a real capacity. He hosts the reunions, which, like, I would say he's gotten less and less great at that.
Especially as he's besties with them now, and he's going to their events, and they're going to his weddings, and they're all kind of friends. Like, I think the point of a reunion is for someone to hold the people on screen accountable, and you know, give the people at home what they want. Apart from when he's like, Oh, Janet from
Janet from Wisconsin wants to know.
why are you such a cunt? Like, and he'll do it thinly veiled through like some woman, like, or some made up thing. It's like, oh, Jessica from Des Moines, Iowa wants to know, like, what's wrong with your face? Like, what did you have done? And why does it look so fucked up?
Yeah, it'll be like, Susan really ruined her face. She looks absolutely mangled. What's going on there? What is she hiding? And like, it'll be like, and it's like, damn, you didn't even take out a goddamn comma there. Like, there's like really like you left the whole fucking shebang in. Like,
Andy, you're not even reading off a card. Is this just what you think?
Andy, we stopped filming hours ago. You're alone in your room. Your PF Chang's has been waiting in the dressing room for a few hours and it's getting cold. You know, it's so true.